headed out for the four-lane, and they thought it was lots of fun. With Jake on his hog, with Patootie the dog, with the automatic 45 gun. Jake, he thought it was the best there was, just down the interstate he saw, till the day he tangled with the county sheriff, who they all call 104. Didn't think it very humorous, and you know he didn't like to get sassed, cause just that morning he had a cup of coffee with a cop named Pendergrast. But the officer should have seen a look in his eyes when outside Monroe on 522, you know he got one hell of a surprise, cause up ahead on the roadway with a shotgun looking down the ball was Sergeant Nichols with his finger on the trigger in the infamous 104.
Do you have a paranormal story you want to share on Night Dreams Talk Radio? You could be a guest. Email us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
Night Dreams Talk Radio, After Dark, wants to give a big shout out to all the truckers that listen to our show. Coming to you from some far point station, like a cosmic tumbleweed, both north and south of the Pleiades. Here's your host, Gary Anderson.
And here I am. Well, we're winding the show down. We got about 29 minutes left. Rob, I just got a funny feeling that one day we're going to find out, well, what they're here for, what they've been doing. And I tell you, it might be worse than War of the Worlds. But the thing is, like I've got a sneaking suspicion, like I said before we went on break. I think what they're doing is when they are abducting these people, and the people that are returned, or maybe their DNA is more perfect than the ones that they're not returning for some reason, and maybe they're implanting thoughts into their DNA. So when they have their offsprings, then one day they call on all these sleeper cells. And if they want to take over the world, whatever their agenda is, I think it's not, well, they're here to give us orbs and a good time. I think that they want something from us, be it if it's our whatever to...
They may not be slave labor. They may be an army in the making. They may have sleeper cells and an army. And how do we face our own people on such a massive scale if that's true? If you're deducting well over 100,000, maybe several 100,000 people a year from around the planet, you're creating one heck of a huge army that nobody could stand against, especially when they look like us, act like us, and are us. So that's a kind of a big deal. We're discussing now, I think, the subject of disclosure, that someday we will find out what's going on. I would like your opinion and James' opinion on that idea. Do you think disclosure is coming soon?
No. All through the 80s, all through the 90s, you know, all the way to I took a 10-year break and then come back on is disclosure. Now, you know, I'll be honest with you. A friend of mine who got me back into radio after, you know, being retired, who's no longer with us, Art Bell, was a friend of mine. And he didn't believe in UFOs at all. To him and Ramona one time were on their back deck, and a triangle went by. And that changed his whole thought of UFOs and aliens and abductions to the point where it actually went from being a disbeliever to being a believer. Disclosure. I will say this. I had some friends, which are no longer friends of mine, because for various reasons, I separated myself with certain people, that they were preaching back, and you know it, James, back 6 months ago, disclosure is going to happen in the next 2 months or sooner. Well, you know what? I've been hearing disclosure all these years being on commercial radio. Now, the only disclosure that's come out was the Nimitz, okay, that the Navy admitted that there's unidentified flying objects. They admitted that. We already knew that. That's not the disclosure I expected. The Space Force, what to me was is a farce. Seriously, why would you give it to the Navy? The American public would no longer trust the government. If the government came out tomorrow, Rob, and said, guess what? There is UFOs. I still think If the government came out honestly and said, hey, people are being abducted. They're being mutilated. Cattle are being mutilated. We can't stop it. We're powerless to stop it. You know exactly what would happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. And James, what do you think?
Well, I along with Gary, I've been waiting since the late 70s for this disclosure. I don't think it's ever going to come. I think it's going to come along slowly like they've been doing. I'm going to tell you the reason why. For number one, like Gary said, they will lose face. Number two, if they ever came out with it, there's going to be heads to roll. There's going to be people liable for lying for the trillions of dollars that have passed, and then somebody's going to go to jail for that. So that's never going to happen like that. It's going to come out slowly like they're doing. And another reason that they won't do it is because I think they want certain technologies not to get in the wrong hands like our enemies. So, everything is got a military application to it. So I definitely don't see them coming out and just saying, yeah, you know what, they've been coming here, we've been holding back. That's not going to happen. I don't ever see that happening. All I can see is soft disclosure like they've been doing periodically 6 months, a year. And that's my opinion.
But anyway. The soft disclosure is nothing. It's been nothing. Okay, the biggest disclosure, whatever, was the Navy came out and it took from 2004 from the Nimitz, and they said, well, these are unidentified flying objects. They also made it clear that they don't know where it came from, so they have no idea. All I can say is something is going on. What's it going to take? Maybe it's going to take a UFO to crash again in a populated area. So now the government can't lie about it no more. They can't say it's a weather balloon.
Well, actually, I kind of agree with James. I think it is soft disclosure. I think the government isn't doing a hard disclosure. I think it's doing a soft disclosure. I think it's just recently begun doing that. The idea that they admitted to the ATIP program, the Navy came out and said that those videos are real, that they had been not classified but were considered close to being classified in that respect. I think that the evidence has been piling up, and I think partly it's due to cell phones and all these cameras everywhere. And I think that the government is beginning to crumble under the barrage of evidence that's pouring in. So rather than come out and say and panic people, as you would suggest, Gary, that UFOs exist and that we can't do anything about it, and they're abducting you and disappearing you and killing you, and it's not mutilating you, and you can't do a thing about it, they're doing soft disclosure, and I think it's working.
Yeah,
I think the ATIP disclosure was a soft disclosure. The majority of Americans now believe UFOs are real, and that's becoming true worldwide. So soft disclosure is occurring. We have switched from being panic in the streets of the 1950s, but they're doing it so slowly and so softly that we aren't panicking. They're doing it step by incremental step, and they're only telling us certain things and not all of it. Should we be afraid? Absolutely. Should we have survival bunkers? Quite possibly. Should you have an escape route designed and planned? Yes, you probably should. Can we do anything about them abducting us? Who knows, unless we actually start trying to work out why they're abducting us, how they're abducting us, and how to stop it. But yeah, I do think that the soft disclosure thing is happening. The ATIP, the government did not say that UFOs were not real. They simply said they didn't present a problem for aerial navigation. So basically, they let it slip that, yeah, UFOs are real. This is soft disclosure. I don't think they're ever going to come out and say, yes, they've landed on the lawn, they've given us ultimatums, and there's nothing we can do about it. I think what you're seeing is an evolution of civilization beginning to realize, yes, UFOs exist, therefore aliens must exist, and yes, something is going on. Now, they haven't gotten to the point of that disclosure, and that may be the problem, that the reason they're here is just so horrific.
Well, that's the point I'm scared about. I will say this. Going back when Ronald Reagan was president, now I don't know if I told you this one, but my father was a good friend of James Gardner, the actor. And he was a good friend of Ronald Reagan. And I didn't know who James was when he would come and visit my dad every summer, or my dad would go to California and visit his buddy. They became friends during the end of the Korean War when they were waiting to be discharged. I can honestly tell you this. I said I would like to talk to Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan had a show for young people could call up, and once a month he would come on the air, and he would be on for a half an hour, and people could call up and ask the president questions. Well, I never called. He called me. And then after that, about a week later, I get a phone call from the White House, and it was Ronald Reagan. And we talked for a few minutes and stuff like that, and I talked to him about Bonzo and all that stuff, and I said, what do you think about, because I was, the Seattle Times and all the newspapers were talking about we're at brink of war, I should say, with the Soviet Union numerous times. They would come out with horror stories in the newspapers. And I said, Star Wars, is it here to protect us from the Soviet Union? And he goes, I remember this, what he said. Well, it's to protect us against them. Now, he didn't say the Soviet Union, for them out there. Actually, he said from them out there. And, at the time, I didn't really digest it. 2 years later, then when I started thinking, from them out there.
You were dissecting the syntax of what he said. He also made a couple statements like that at the UN.
Oh, yeah.
And in one filming of E.T., he said only a handful of people know the true story to the people that were watching the movie with him, because they had White House screenings of these things. I think it was E.T. And it might have been Close Encounters of the Third Kind, I don't know. But that's not important. The important point was that he said only a handful of people really know the truth about this. So, and then he made that speech about if we were attacked by an alien civilization, I'm paraphrasing, then we would all unite. So it sounded like President Reagan knew a lot of things that were going on and just wasn't divulging them. The interesting thing is President Carter, before he was president, said, when he was running for office, said that he would divulge the information once he was president. He had seen a UFO before he became president, when he was governor of Georgia. And once he became president, that was it. Nothing more was said. So something is going on. There is obviously, if you and I can figure out certain things and accept that UFOs are real and that this is enough evidence to support it, what is the government doing for the last 60, 70 years with it? They must have a heck of a lot more information. So obviously they're running with it, and we are being told what we're supposed to be told, when we're supposed to be told, and to a minimal degree. And I'm sure it's to keep the economy running, to keep our civilization together, to keep our technology expanding, and to keep us from panicking and all hiding in bunkers deep under the ground.
Yeah, would being underground in a bunker, would that really protect you if they wanted you? Think about that.